Let's bring in Marc Fernich, a criminal defense attorney and a professor at Brooklyn Law School. And Adolphus Pruitt, president of the St. Louis chapter of the NAACP. He is joining us tonight from St. Louis. Gentlemen, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Mr. Pruitt, I want to start with you because those numbers are extremely troubling here. 70% of African Americans feel that they simply cannot trust the legal system. What is the conversation we should be having here tonight?
No, the conversation should be the fact that not only does 70% feel that way, but if they looked at the evidence, the numbers as relates to tracking the disparity ratios, the numbers as relates to the number of stops and encounters that African Americans have with policemen are overwhelmingly higher than they are for everybody else. So it wouldn't surprise me that those folks who are not subject to those search and seizures would feel that way.
Mr. Fernich, we hear so many people say this is a wake-up call. As a criminal defense attorney, are you surprised to hear that many African Americans simply don't trust the legal system?
Well, no, Tom. I mean, it's a well-known fact that there are massive disparities, particularly in the federal system, in the way offenders, particularly drug offenders, are treated, and there's tremendous momentum in Congress right now to cut mandatory minimum sentences, cut crack sentences, and Congress has taken action to remedy those disparities, and those changes are going to go into effect this November.
Were any federal civil rights violated?
Well, I think it's a mistake to rush to judgment and to conclude that it was a civil rights case or to conclude that the shooting was or was not justified. We simply don't know what happened there, and the grand jury will presumably sort this out. If it were a federal civil rights case, it's by no means a slam dunk case because the federal civil rights statute requires a showing of racial animus, and that has to be the motivating proximate cause of the shooting. That's a very, very difficult burden to establish, particularly in a sort of he said case where we know the defense is going to be self-defense.
Has there been a rush to judgment? Should we not let the legal process play out?
No, absolutely not. I don't think so. I think the legal process has to play out, and nobody is saying we need to bypass the legal process. But if this kid had been white, and there were 8 white witnesses that were coming back with the same testimony, I don't think we would be having the conversation we have today. But because those 8 witnesses are black, even though all their accounts are coming back the same, there seems to be this thing about, well, maybe those 8 witnesses, even though they all are saying the same thing, did not witness what actually happened.
Mr. Furness, do you think we'll see any changes coming out of Ferguson regarding the police force?
You know, as a criminal defense lawyer, I'm no friend or defender of police officers, but we talk about this equipment, and they're sort of put between a rock and a hard place. We heard throughout the 80s and the 90s, even dating back to the Nixon administration, war on drugs. We're going to stamp out drugs. We're going to militarize police. We're going to turn them into SWAT teams to keep our communities safe. That's why they're loaded up like this with this kind of heavy artillery.
Yeah, but how do we fundamentally change the conversation, Mr. Pruitt, about race?
You know, we have to reach a point where we have to understand that we all are in this country together. We're going to be here together, and we have to find a way to respect each other's differences culture-wise. But at the same time, we have to address the socioeconomic issues that are the root cause to a lot of this. At the end of the day, I want to say one thing. If you look at the response for the young African-American males in Ferguson and look at the response of the young males in Gaza, I'm not trying to make a geopolitical statement, but the cause and the response is one and the same, and that is being confined to a close urban ghetto, for lack of a better term, and over securitized and over police and having their rights taken away from them.
Let's talk about moving forward here. We have a funeral for an 18-year-old boy who was gunned down, who's no longer with us. So how do we move the conversation forward, Mr. Pruitt? Where do we go from here in building better relations within the community and better relations within the police department?
We have to diversify police departments, especially those that are policing predominantly African American communities, and we have to address the socioeconomic differences that are occurring.